السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، وأجدد الترحيب بكم جميعا في فعاليات اليوم للمعرض والمؤتمر، معرض ومؤتمر المنتجات الدولي 2018. هذه الجلسة تبحث الفرص والاستراتيجيات والمبادرات الرامية إلى تحقيق الرؤية الوطنية، وللحديث عن تعزيز التواجد القطري على الساحة الدولية من خلال الخطوط الجوية القطرية. وقبل أن أدعو السيد أكبر الباكر الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة الخطوط الجوية القطرية للتفضل بإلقاء كلمته، دعونا نشاهد هذا الفيديو. Dreams come true. شكرا على هذا الفيديو. الآن أعطي الكلمة للسيد أكبر الباكر الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة الخطوط الجوية القطرية، فليتفضل مشكورا.
Special guests, ladies and gentlemen, just good afternoon. As Group Chief Executive of Qatar Airways, it is my pleasure to welcome you to my beautiful country here at the magnificent Doha Exhibition and Conference Center in the heart of vibrant downtown Doha. The IPEC 2018 conference draws together dignitaries and representatives from governments and businesses from every corner of the globe who have come here to explore firsthand the multitude of investment and development opportunities which are available in Qatar across diverse sectors. By meeting key governmental bodies and players from private sector, participating companies benefit from direct access to projects and development plans straight from the source. Importantly, this forum acts as a medium to showcase strategic projects for achieving national requirements, as well as to facilitate public-private partnerships and joint ventures. It also represents an important gateway for bolstering economic relations and accelerating trade across various industries. As you evaluate the many wonderful opportunities that this conference presents, I hope that you experience the inclusiveness and hospitality for which my country is so fondly known throughout the world. Qatar is a place that people come back to in increasing numbers for the opportunities that exist here and for the relationships that they have formed. Many of you have already established relationships in Qatar and are successfully conducting businesses in your field of enterprise. Others will be here to explore abundance that this great nation offers through the window that this esteemed conference provides. In joining this unique conference, you have come to the state of Qatar during the exciting times of growth and opportunity. What you do with the potential that this season offers will shape the future economic development of my country, as well as that of your various economies and enterprises. Businesses, as with air travel, transcends borders and brings people together. This dynamic of mutual benefit illustrates the collaborative nature of business, just as business teaches us about the collaborative nature of the world in which we live. Qatar knows a lot about collaboration. Without a highly developed willingness and ability to form collaborative bonds with nations across the world, my country would not be in the secure and enviable position that it is in today. The incredible amount of infrastructure activity that has been a feature of life in Qatar for the past 2 decades or more continues through the collaborative commercial exchange of opportunities. The great majority of the skilled personnel engaged here undertaking this development is provided by resident expats from hundreds of nations throughout the world. The materials that are used are supplied from manufacturers across the globe. Qatar is a living example of collaboration and interdependence in action. Our national airline, Qatar Airways, prospers through the collaborative efforts of staff from more than 160 nations. Our airline is an illustration of what is being achieved in the state of Qatar: tremendous economic growth, physical expansion, and people from all over the world looking at us and liking what they see. To quote from the International Monetary Fund, Qatar remained a regional leader in terms of economic expansion in 2017. Our economy is forecast to expand by 3.1% in 2018, as per the latest IMF estimates released in October last year. This is higher than growth estimates for the Middle East as a whole. The state also plans to award contracts worth $29 billion to the private sector in order to encourage diversification and focus on supporting food security projects, small and medium enterprises, and the development of infrastructure in economic zones and free trade zones. In order to boost the foreign investment, Qatar has recently outlined a new draft law allowing foreign investors 100% ownership in most sectors of the economy. This will position the country as a leading economic power in the region. Never before has Qatar been in such a favorable place to invest, that so many international visitors or investment by international partners, and never before has Qatar Airways experienced such an explosive growth in the number of destinations that we serve, our fleet size, aircraft on order, and the number of coveted awards that we continue to receive continuously. When the illegal blockade happened without warning or reason, we were able to reach out to friends and neighbors in the region, whom we were already collaborating with to deepen our trade activities. From the circumstances that perpetrators of the blockade had hoped would be our darkest hour, bring us to our knees, capitulate our dignity and sovereignty, came the best opportunity in our nation's history to demonstrate our resolve, ingenuity, business acumen, and our depth of character and national pride. Let me share with you some interesting information to illustrate how opportunities can be found in the most unexpected situations that may help to illustrate to you why Qatar is an incredible place for you to invest. Perhaps the nation's most urgent need when the illegal embargo was imposed was food security. With all the land borders closed, the vast majority of food and consumables and the most efficient route for their overnight supply was cut off. Sea routes were open, but urgent supply was not possible as the blockade was unexpected, from whom we thought were our brethren. Overnight, Qatar Airways cargo fleet was mobilized and supported by extra leased cargo aircraft that was supplied by our commercial partners to undertake a massive airlift of food, consumables, commercial and medical supplies, building materials, machinery, and more. Qatar Airways cargo airlifted every conceivable item into Qatar through our world-class warehousing and distribution facilities. Through the foresight and wise leadership of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Qatar never experienced any shortage, and I'm proud of my airline's ability to deliver the performance required in the hour of need. Further visionary planning saw Qatar Airways cargo fly in dairy products and cows from Europe, US, Australia to supply a Qatari entrepreneur who had successfully started the nation's dairy industry that is already stocking our supermarket shelves with locally manufactured dairy products. When this phase of development complete, Qatar Airways had carried 4,000 cows into Qatar. Of course, our adversaries used this negatively because they didn't believe that Qatar would stand taller than it was before by this illegal blockade, which they thought will bow us down, but they failed miserably. Adversity breeds opportunity if you embrace it. Because of our business as usual attitude during the illegal blockade, through our continued planned expansion of routes and strategic investment, Qatar Airways Cargo was recently named the world's largest cargo operator during this year. Our passenger airline lost 18 routes into the countries that imposed the illegal blockade. But within the year, we have replaced these with 18 new destinations, as well as increasing the frequency of flights to several existing destinations. To date, since the start of the blockade, we have added 24 new destinations, so they even failed to slow down Qatar Airways expansion. Last year, Qatar Airways proudly received more than 50 prestigious industry awards, and Hamad International Airport has been recognized as the Skytrax 5-star airport, the best airport in the Middle East, as well as the only Middle East airport to be in the world's top 10 airports. As of the world's youngest and fastest growing airline, we continue to lead the industry by putting the passenger's experience first. Just months after the start of the illegal blockade, we introduced our award-winning Q-Suite business class experience. This patented unique design has brought first class to business class for passengers around the world and features the world's first double bed in business class. So we are always ahead of our competition. With adjustable panels, allowing colleagues, friends, or families traveling together to transform their space into a private suite. Qatar Airways' role in bringing the world together extends into a sponsorship of major sporting teams and events such as Bayern Munich Football Club, Boca Juniors, and AC Roma, and of course, our groundbreaking partnership with FIFA as the official airline partner. Qatar Airways is a living illustration of growth, prosperity, and courageous attitude demonstrated by the State of Qatar under the leadership of His Highness, our Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. As the nation's proud flag carrier, we reflect the value of business as means of bringing people together. This is not only a key pillar of long-term vision of the State of Qatar, but is also something at the heart of the airline's own brand message, going places together. The unique relationship between Qatar and those who invest with us in our future means that we are now seen by the rest of the world not just as partners in commercial, economic, and investment sense. They are now able to experience the respect, loyalty, and mutual understanding that our nation enjoys. As we continue to build our relationship during partnership opportunities over the course of this conference, we can do so while acknowledging and celebrating our achievements and look to the future that we will build together. It is on this note, dear guests, that I wish you a successful IPEC 2018. Thank you very much.
شكرا للسيد أكبر الباكر الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة الخطوط الجوية القطرية على هذه الكلمة. وقبل أن أترك المسرح للسيد حسن عبد الرحمن الإبراهيم القائم بأعمال رئيس الهيئة العامة للسياحة للتفضل وإلقاء كلمته، دعونا نشاهد هذا الفيديو. طبعا هناك الكثير لرؤيته في قطر، وأيضا لزوار قطر بإمكانهم طبعا يعني السير والتجوال في الليل في المساء لرؤية الإضاءة الجميلة لأبراج الدوحة. الآن إذن أدعو السيد حسن عبد الرحمن الإبراهيم القائم بأعمال رئيس الهيئة العامة للسياحة للتفضل بإلقاء كلمته.
أصحاب السعادة، السيدات والسادة الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اسمحوا لي بمناسبة حضور ممثلين من أكثر من 11 دولة للحديث باللغة الإنجليزية، سنحاول من خلال هذه الكلمة التحدث باقتضاب وبعجالة لنطرح المجال تاليا للأخ مقدم الحوار للحديث مع الضيوف. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to speak very briefly, as we will have more time to discuss on the panel discussion, and give you a glimpse about our tourism sector and how our tourism sector is open for investments here in the state of Qatar. So in the last year, we were commissioned by His Excellency the Prime Minister to refresh our tourism sector strategy. That has happened in January of 2017. Our previous strategy focused so much on growing our markets regionally. However, our new strategy did not care about growth as much as it cared about what you've seen in the videos that we presented a few minutes ago. The video reflects our belief and our philosophy in how we're tackling our tourism sector moving forward. We're doubling down on experience. This is something that you can see in everything that Qatar has been doing in the last few years. It started with enhancing our visa policies. It also is reflected through our award-winning airline, our amazing airport, our amazing hospitality sector, and this is something that we believe in, and we've doubled down on experience, and this is something that we're targeting for the next few years. In order for us to grow, we focus so much on what kind of markets we will be focusing on. We focus so much on diversifying our markets as much as possible and focusing on markets that will give us growth in the future. And this is where we exist today as a tourism sector, and these are the markets that we've been targeting in the last year, and we will continue to target in the future as well. In order for us to grow in these markets, we made sure that we have partnerships. These partnerships go beyond the partnerships that we have with tour operators, and not just focusing on tour operators and travel agencies around the world, but it goes even beyond. It goes to service providers in these markets that will help us to grow in markets such as China. It is also the partnerships that we've developed when it comes to regulating our sector and setting the standards high in our sector. And this is why you can see our partnerships with the likes of STR and Ollery that help us to monitor the quality of our offering and to make sure that we are matching the expectation of our customers as well. However, before we grow globally, we need to make sure that we also have public partnerships as well. These public partnerships that we have in Qatar make sure that any experience that not just the tourists will have, but also the investors will have in Qatar are seamless. These are some of the entities that helped us grow in the last year and will help us to grow in the future as well. These growth indicators are great indicators of the success of our strategy in the first year. We can see that we've enjoyed a double-digit growth from markets such as China, India, Germany, and a double-digit growth in markets such as Russia. And we have great growth ever since we enhanced the visa facilitation. And our carrier also grew its presence in some of these markets in the last year or so. Again, China is a success story, and we're very proud of this success. This success would not have happened without the support of the private sector in Qatar and without the support of the hospitality sector in Qatar. We've been enjoying a great growth from China, and this growth hopefully will continue to prove itself in the future as well. Again, another success story that we have in Qatar is the cruise tourism sector in Qatar. We've enjoyed double-digit growth last year, and this year we're expecting around 140,000 visitors on cruise ships. This is a great growth opportunity for the companies in Qatar and for the investors from around the world to establish their presence as DMCs and cater to this growth that is happening. We're expecting to reach 200,000 in the next year or so, and we're expecting to reach 300,000 by the year 2021, 2022. Again, these are some of the indicators that we have based on our performance last year. As you can see, great and healthy performance that we had for such a sector. As we mentioned, our growth would not have happened without the partnerships that we've had with the likes of TUI, AIDA, and Costa, and we've just signed up with AIDA and Costa that will start they will start their operation in Qatar with this season. Openness is another great success story for the state of Qatar. A year ago, Qatar was not as open as it is today. We were able to respond to the blockade by being more open than ever, by being more open not just in comparison to how we were in the past, but even in comparison to the global standards and the regional standards. So we are the most open country now in the region, and we are the 8th globally. And this is a great story that would not have happened without the support of His Highness the Emir. The private sector, we've been engaging with the private sector throughout not just the execution phase, but we've been engaging very actively with the private sector when it comes to the planning phase. We've heard their concerns. We are engaging them in the planning phase. We're engaging them in the implementation phase. And now as we move forward, as the National Tourism Council will be formed, the private sector will also be involved in monitoring the performance of the tourism board and the other entities, and will also be involved in correcting our direction in the future as well, inshallah. Long-term strategy, our strategy would not have been made possible and would not have been made the way it had been made without the partnerships, as we mentioned, that we have with the public sector. The next chapter that we have between now and 2023, again, it had been a direction that His Excellency the Prime Minister put together, and he directed all the governmental entities, the public entities, and the private entities in Qatar to make sure that this sector is going to be one of the 5 sectors that will help us diversify our economy. And the needs of the private sector, the need of the investors that will come to Qatar, inshallah, will be answered by both the public and the private sector in Qatar. In order for us to plan for the future, we needed to also theme locations in Qatar and provide opportunities that we have in Qatar. And therefore, moving forward, there will be opportunities that will be given to the private sector through the theming that we've put, through the opportunities that we have, and through the opportunities that will be rolled out to the private sector, inshallah, soon. Again, as I mentioned, we are doubling down on experiences, and we want to provide experiences that will not be matched by anyone in the future. Qatar has one of the largest whale shark gatherings in the world, one of the largest dugongs gatherings of the world. These are some of the magical experiences that Qatar has. And we have more and more experiences that we will be rolling out once the private sector in Qatar is ready and the DMCs in Qatar are ready to provide such an opportunity for the tourists coming to Qatar, inshallah. Again, these are some of the opportunities. We will not talk about the opportunities now, but we are available throughout the exhibition and the conference for anyone who's interested to talk about these opportunities moving forward. So what are we providing to the investors to make sure that their journey in Qatar is smooth and their journey is seamless? I will not talk more about the business environment in Qatar. We've heard from His Excellency the Minister of Economy and Commerce. We've heard as well from His Excellency the Minister of Finance about the performance of the public sector and the private sector and how it has been a great success story. We've heard as well from His Excellency the Group CEO of Qatar Airways about the growth of this sector in Qatar. There are ample opportunities, and the public sector is providing stability when it comes to investments in Qatar. When it comes to what we do as a tourism authority and as a central planning entity and as a regulator for the sector, we're trying to facilitate as much as possible by providing an easy access to the market, whether through licensing, whether through the classification system that we've refreshed in collaboration with the private sector, and whether through providing direction towards the growth opportunities that are available in the sector. And again, there are incentives that had been planned by the public sector and by the government of state of Qatar, whether through the conventional model that we have through the governmental stream or through Qatar Financial Center or the free zones that we have in the future. And we will hear from the free zones, inshallah, tomorrow about the incentive schemes that the government has for the private sector. In order for us not to take any longer, we'll just pass it on to the MC. Thank you very much for listening to us.
شكرا للسيد حسن عبد الرحمن الإبراهيم القائم بأعمال رئيس الهيئة العامة للسياحة على هذا العرض وكل هذه التفاصيل. الحضور الكريم، مبادرات واستراتيجيات تحقيق رؤية قطر الوطنية 2030 هي عنوان الجلسة النقاشية الثانية لهذا اليوم. أترك الكلمة الآن للإعلامي نديم الملاح مدير الجلسة الذي يبحث مع ضيوفه فرص الأعمال والاستثمار المتاحة من خلال مختلف مشاريع وبرامج رؤية قطر الوطنية 2030.
Dear Excellencies, dear distinguished guests, it gives me a great honor to welcome you to our second panel discussion of the conference entitled Strategies and Initiatives Towards National Vision 2030. Allow me first to welcome and invite our panelists to join us at the panel. His Excellency Mr. Akbar Al-Bakir, Chief Executive Officer, Qatar Airways. Mr. Ali Ahmed Al-Kuwari, Group Chief Executive Officer, Qatar National Bank. Mr. Hassan Abdul Rahman Al-Ibrahim, Acting Chairman, Qatar Tourism Authority. Mr. Yusuf Muhammad Al-Jida, Chief Executive Officer, Qatar Financial Center. And I would like to mention that His Excellency Mr. Hassan Al-Duwadi, Secretary General Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy, will join us in any minute during this panel. Dear guests, it is universally acknowledged that Qatar's vision for 2030 has become a major roadmap for the economic, social, environmental, and political future of Qatar. As a comprehensive vision, it is certainly in need of comprehensive initiatives and strategies across all sectors. The major common theme among these strategies is the realization of two pivotal goals: reaching balance between visions and goals so as to include both individuals and various sectors, and the second being the attainment of sustainability by addressing the needs of the current generation without undermining the needs of future generations. Speaking as a journalist, in the realm of economic journalism, strategic visions and plans are often reported in most of our bulletins and programs. However, these vision and plans, once subjected to the smallest challenge or political conjuncture, would crumble as a result of distortion created by these conjunctures on the execution of these vision. This raises the question of whether or not Qatar has prepared for this in its 2030 vision. No doubt, we will be listening to more on this from our participants throughout the session. Talking about the comprehensive development and project in Qatar in accordance with its 2030 vision will soon lead us to the preparation of the state of Qatar to host the World Cup in 2022, taking into consideration all repercussions involved across all sectors, most importantly, the infrastructure, financial soundness, and the role of the private sector. Now we will start our discussion with our panelists, and after that, and after we wrap up, we will open the floor for the Q&As. As I mentioned before at the beginning of the session, that Qatar's National Vision 2030 became a roadmap, a major roadmap for all sectors. Let me start with His Excellency Mr. Akbar Al-Bakir. For Qatar Airways, what you are doing to help achieve this vision?
You know that it's extremely important for any national vision to materialize, to have a very strong connectivity with the world. And this is exactly what Qatar Airways is providing. Not only that we are connecting the entire globe, all the 6 continents, to the state of Qatar, but we also have a vision to be the largest connector, even in business sense. For example, having the world's largest cargo operator. We also have the plans in place with our subsidiaries to promote, to help Mr. Hassan to promote the tourism in the country. There is a very clear vision that envisage not only to grow it as a major hub on our region, but also for Qatar to become a major tourist attraction. And this is exactly what we are also doing together with Discover Qatar branch of Qatar Airways. And in collaboration with the Tourism Authority, we are promoting Qatar globally. We are offering tourists opportunities to visit this unexplored country. And what we are also going to do is not just stop what we have achieved today, though we have achieved what the economy of our country requires. By the 2022, just to give you this sense of what we plan to do, Qatar Airways network will exceed 250 destinations. We are expanding the airport to make it even a major hub than it is already here. We are investing in developing local expertise in running both the airport and the airline. We have a huge program of scholarships which we are providing. So these are all the kinds of the vision that we have for the 2030 of His Highness, which we expect not only for Qatar Airways, but every single citizen of my beloved country to be part of this, to deliver this vision, because it cannot only happen with airline or with the people that are sitting here. It is for every single individual Qatari. You know, we don't have such a big population. So every single asset of every single Qatari is required to fulfill the vision of His Highness for 2030. And I'm very proud to say, I'm very pleased to say that our neighbors are now also have 2030 vision. But it is all cut and paste national vision of the state of Qatar, which I'm very proud to say. So there are other people. When you really look at their national vision for 2030, I'm sure people know whom I'm talking about. It is exactly a cut and paste of the national vision which we already had established nearly 2 years ago. So I'm happy that other people are now waking up to our great vision for 2030. Thank you.
If I want to stay with you, Mr. Your Excellency, as I said, any strategies or vision, once subjected to any problem, that will affect the vision or the plans had been made. The blockade, did it change your vision, the way you work? How did it affect your activity business?
You already heard the statistics given by panels before. You already know the statistics that have been released by the IMF. You know, tell me which country in the world would have had an economic growth of just under 4% under the stress of blockade.
If we want to talk about the profit, your annual profit.
You're talking about my profit. I thought you were talking about the blockade because there is a reflection in the sound.
Yes.
I didn't follow up. Again, when the blockade happened, we gave a forecast to our owners, which is of course the state of Qatar, that we would lose approximately 1.3 billion US dollars in the financial year ending March of 2018.
This is estimation.
Sorry?
Estimation.
This was a forecast. Of course, you know, when you are in the beginning of your financial year and you have such a huge stress, you need to forecast. You know, nobody can be for certain because nobody in its wildest dream knew what this blockade would do in the first hours and days of the blockade. when you close the country, when you cocoon a country around your adversaries, you will always look at the worst case scenario. So losing a market of nearly 18 destinations, mature destinations, losing nearly 20.1% of the capacity of my airline, and 1.75 billion US dollars of market share. We had to estimate what will be our loss. 4 months into our blockade, when we realized how we will be able to defeat this, we then gave a second estimate of around 600 million. And we kept on working hard, making sure that we will take every single opportunity we have in order to defeat this blockade and let our adversaries to know that we did not slow down. We kept on sticking to our plans, and I'm very proud to say that we gave a huge shock to the market. It was now the reverse. Instead of us getting the shock in the beginning, we gave a huge shock to the market by announcing only 69 million US dollars as loss. So this is a huge accolade to all the employees of Qatar Airways of how we gel together to make sure that we will mitigate this risk and keep on expanding and growing. And the loss of 69 million was really a very big shock to the huge number of bankers that attended our bankers conference just last month in Seattle. So you can see that we are marching ahead, and quite the contrary. You can see what the impact of the blockade has brought to our neighbors. One airline is in meltdown, and the second airline now will struggle by reducing capacities, because the blockade is a double-edged sword, which has actually impacted them more than what they thought would impact my beloved country.
Thank you. Since we are talking about the role of various sectors into Qatar's national vision, I will move to Mr. Ali Ahmed Al-Kuwari, Group Chief Executive Officer, Qatar National Bank. The role of the banking sector within this vision, how do you describe it?
Well, I mean, going to the national vision of Qatar 2030, Qatar has built a very strong wealth, from the hydrocarbon sector. And Qatar today, as you know, is the richest country in the world. The income per capita is at $125,000, which puts it in the first place. Also, the per capita share of hydrocarbon is about 62,000 barrels per person. This puts Qatar in the first place. The second country after this is almost 1/3 of this number. The reserves of gas in Qatar is there to last for 141 years. So Qatar has generated excellent wealth from hydrocarbons. So the vision itself is to transform the economy from hydrocarbon-based to a knowledge-based economy. Now, what does that mean? That means investment in education and health, and building a very strong private sector. And our role here, I talk as a QMB and the banking sector in general, is basically to enable the private sector through like a very strong proposition for the SMEs, in terms of products, in terms of services, and we have built a very strong proposition for this sector, to become a leading sector. Also, I must say, QMB, we are the financial champion of Qatar, and we are part of the vision. We are actually at the heart of the vision of the 2030 of Qatar, and we see ourselves as building a parallel vision. We are similar to my friend, Akbar. Akbar is the champion, in the airlines and the transport. We are the champion. So we represent the Qatar story, and we are part of the Qatar 2030 story. So QMB is the largest and by far bank in Middle East and Africa. We have built this vision, which we call it a parallel vision. Sorry? By assets, by loans, by deposits, by profit, by everything. And when we say by, I mean a very strong, like number 2 bank, after QMB is is only $50 billion less than we are. It's just to show you how far we are. We have gone in achieving our vision. And we're not stopping, at this stage. I'm sorry about the sound. I think there is some echo, there. But
if you can just
yeah,
bring
so-
it.
Sorry?
If you can just bring it more to you.
Closer, maybe.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So we have built our vision around the Qatar 2030 vision. Our aspiration for 2030 to be a global bank, to be among the top 50 banks in the world, and we're going in that road. So for us, it's very important, to show that, and I must say also, there is, something when it comes to the banking sector itself, has been performing much better than, the neighboring countries in terms of performance, in terms of growth. Just recently, as you know, Moody's have upgraded the banking system from negative to stable. And I must say, the negative rating has nothing to do with the performance of the banking sector, but was merely due to the geopolitics, around the region itself. So we have an excellent, banking system, which is really supporting the Qatar Vision, the 2030. And as I say, our role here is really to support, the private sector. We already have seen, excellent results. Today's contribution of the private sector versus, in terms of the GDP contribution, is 68% versus hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is only 32%. So we are in the right directions in achieving our goal. We have many important stops in the way to the 2030. We have the World Cup 2022. It's a very important milestones. And Qatar already has, committed $150 billion of projects to support, the 2022 and beyond. We see most of these projects, materializing in 2020, which is basically getting prepared 100%, for the World Cup. And then we go to another cycle of investment, which is mainly how we operate, the World Cup in terms of the operating companies, getting the ticketing, getting the securities, getting, the hospitality. We see another investment. Already Qatar has announced also, uplifting the gas production by 50% to 110 million tons of, MTBAs. So this is going to happen also around the 2023 and 24. So this is going to uplift our hydrocarbon. And then we have the 2030 in general, and again, investing on developing the human capital of the country.
Thank you, Mr. I'll move to Mr. Hassan Abdurrahman Al-Ibrahim, Acting Chairman, Qatar Tourism Authority. In your speech, you shed a lot of light about your role in Qatar National Vision. How do you describe the role of Tourism Authority to a better future for Qatar? People who come to Qatar, they will become later on ambassadors for Qatar. Especially, we are the countdown for the World Cup 2022 is 4 years so close. What experience do you promise people who visit Qatar?
Thank you very much. The way we perceive our destination, again, Qatar as a destination, it's a world-class hub with deep cultural roots. As I mentioned in my speech, we focus so much on doubling down on experience. This is one thing that we wanted to focus on because most of the destinations, they lose focus and they focus so much on growth. The issue is when you focus on growth and you forget about the experience, you end up losing both. You lose the growth, it's not sustainable anymore, and you lose the experience as well and the quality of the experience. So what is our role? Beyond the role of the economic role which we have and the role that we play in the economic sustainability, we also play different roles when it comes to environmental sustainability, social and cultural sustainability as well, which are the pillars of our 2030 vision as a country. In terms of the experiences that we have, we try as much as possible to push for more sustainable experiences, not just economically, but also environmentally. And this is why we started some of the prototypes now in some of the protected areas in Qatar to make sure that the experiences we provide are up to the standard, up to the expectation, and they're helping us with protecting our environment. This also applies to the social and cultural element, as we mentioned. I mean, we try as much as possible not to lose the identity of the destination. People tend to travel to places that are different from where they are. And we don't just want to copy and try to mimic others by doing the most modern and the largest mall or the tallest building. This is not something that we're trying to do. but we're trying to provide authentic experiences and experiences that are curated by Qatar and for Qataris and non-Qataris and for our visitors as well. And again, the social element of the industry itself, and in order for us to achieve our 2030 vision, we try as much as possible to have the Qatari identity element as well, whereby we develop a sector that will be welcomed and tolerated by our people as well. So these are the main components of how we're trying to achieve the 2030 vision and play a role beyond the role of just diversifying our economy, because it's just one of 4 elements that we need to focus on.
Can you update us about last year? What did you achieve? And now we are ahead of a new season now.
Sure. The blockade provided Qatar with a great opportunity to not just focus on short-term initiatives. This is something that we all discussed and we all mentioned, and we saw the indicators, they're very healthy. But it also helped us with our change management plan. We focused so much on using this opportunity to change as many policies as possible. We started with the most obvious, the visa policy. As we mentioned, Qatar was 170 something when it comes to visa openness. Today, Qatar is the 8th globally. This should be a testament of how serious Qatar is when it comes to opening the destination and when it comes to promoting Qatar as a destination. We also focus so much on providing the sense of security when it comes to the tourist's right as well. The first thing we thought about when the blockade started is not just the growth and losing the numbers, but we wanted to make sure that every citizen from any country in the region that was not allowed to travel to Qatar will have his full rights back. And this is why our hospitality sector had been doing great when it comes to serving to these segments and to make sure that their rights and the bookings and whatever they've done had been protected and they got their right and they got their money back as well. Other things that had happened as well, we started as much as possible to expedite the diversification efforts. And this is why we worked very closely with His Excellency Mr. Akbar Al-Bakr, Qatar Airways, and the DMCs in Qatar, including Discover Qatar, to make sure that we start tapping into new markets. Russia is a great success story for Qatar. China is another great success story for Qatar. India is a great success story for Qatar. We started attracting not just businesses to come and meet in Qatar, but people to come and travel in Qatar. For people to come and do their weddings in Qatar. Qatar now is becoming more and more popular destination for weddings. So between now and the next few months, we have 6 weddings just from India, for example. We're having more and more business meetings in Qatar. Companies now from India and from China are meeting in Qatar, meetings that are for more than 1,000 people. This is not something that we tapped into in the past few years because we focused so much on the social and cultural sustainability element, and we focused on growing our footprint in the region. But now, after the blockade, we expedited our plans and we started diversifying our markets as soon as possible. So this is what we've done in the last year or so. And as I mentioned, we made sure that whatever step we're making, it's a step for the longer term solution. And again, governance is something that we also looked into, and there is a solution that we've put together in collaboration with our partners, and it is something that will also help us on the longer term. It's not just a temporal thing that we're looking at, and it's not a temporal thing that will help us just go beyond a few months of blockade or years of blockade, but to build a healthy sector that is not dependent on a single geographical zone.
Mr. Yusuf Mohammed Al-Jida, Chief Executive Officer, Qatar Financial Center. As we saw in the demo video at the beginning of this conference, you said like there's now 400 companies under the umbrella of QFC. What's your role in achieving the Qatar's national vision and also the partners, what they are doing for Qatar?
Thank you, Nadeem. Before I answer that question, I want to just for the sake of the audience, I'd like to just give you a brief of what Financial Center is. Qatar Financial Center simply is a financial and business platform to do business in the Qatari economy. We're one of the few countries in the region that offers 2 different ways of doing business, and we operate under English common law. So if you're an international business, financial or non-financial, who wishes to do business in Qatar under an international framework and a legal structure, then the QFC is a suitable option for your business proposition. Now, in terms of our direct contribution to the Qatar National Vision, of course, there's several pillars for the Qatar National Vision 2030. We are mainly contributing to the economic pillar. As you know, one of our, of course, aims as part of the National Vision is to diversify away from oil and gas and to promote the development of the private sector. And the Qatar Financial Center, with the number of companies it currently hosts and with the aggressive targets it has put together up to 2022, will definitely contribute to developing further the private sector and the Qatari economy. Today, like the video was a bit old, today we're over 540 companies. I think the video was done a year back when we were around the 400 mark. But today we have more than 540 companies, and within 5 years we're targeting more than 1,000 companies, so we want to double in size. And again, this contributes directly to the foreign direct investment narrative of the state of Qatar, because the more international investments you have, the more companies that move into Qatar, the more that contributes to your private sector development and the total investments that are being put to work in the Qatari economy. So we have a direct contribution. We are targeting 10,000 jobs by 2022. Of course, the creation of jobs is also part of the private sector development narrative. The number of companies is another. And the third aggressive target we've put together is we want to contribute 5% to the Qatar capital market market cap. Currently, we have one financial institution listed on the Qatar Exchange. We have 2 exchange-traded funds, also managed by 2 QFC companies, also listed on the Qatar Exchange. And we want to contribute further to the market cap of the Qatar Exchange. So we've put very aggressive targets in the next 5 years. And simply to answer your question again, we contribute directly from an economic perspective. We increase foreign direct investment, we create more jobs, and we contribute to the private sector development narrative as part of the economic pillar of Qatar National Vision 2030. So we are very crucial in contributing to the overall national vision as the Qatar Financial Center.
I'll go back to His Excellency Mr. Akbar Al-Bakr. Now I will tell you a personal experience. Before the blockade, I used to go to Sudan a lot. And after the blockade, I kept on going to Sudan. It was like 3 or 4 hours trip from Doha to Khartoum. After the blockade, now it's about 7 hours. So as I said, no, okay, now this will affect the price of the ticket. This will affect the quality of service. After I went to Sudan after the blockade, the price is still the same, and the quality of service also the same. How did you manage this?
This is exactly where the loss of the airline came from. When we did not raise the fares to the extent that we increased the flying time, this is something that the airline had to absorb and then had to take the impact. You see, people, they don't realize how an airline operates. I know that I disappoint a lot of people when they compare our prices where other passengers are paying different rates that Qatar Airways is charging. But this is the model on which all the airlines work and is regulated by IATA. However, also remember something, that when the oil price went from $40 to $115, $120, this was nearly threefold increase in the price. Airlines did not increase the price by threefold because, you know, there will be time when the airline have to take the impact of the additional cost. As the oil price is keeping on rising now, for example, there will be a time when we will have to start as an airline increase the fuel surcharge tax that the airlines had imposed when it had reached 110, 120, and then when the oil price came down, these surcharges was then removed. If the oil price continues and the additional impact of operational cost increase, then airlines all over the world normally will start increasing a surcharge on the cost of the fuel. But at the same time, as Qatar Airways is concerned, I had a very clear instructions to our commercial people that we will not be able to put additional stress on our passengers and that we will have to absorb the additional cost to operate the longer routes. And this is where I stated earlier in my speech, in my response to you, that Qatar Airways gave a warning of additional costs and the negative bottom line that would result in this additional cost of 1.3 billion. And then we started mitigating by going to new routes and taking the benefit from those new routes and then putting it on the routes that we have additional cost to mitigate in order not to put additional cost of this increased travel on the passengers like you that like to go to Sudan. I'm interested to know why you go so often to Sudan.
I love the people of Sudan. I move to Mr. Ali Ahmed Al-Kuwari. Now, we don't have a lot of time. I think at 1 we should start the Q&A. So kindly, please, just 1 minute limit for the answer. Mr. Ali, for the last update, the last that the Global Credit Agency Moody's has upgraded the outlook for financial banking sector from to stable from negative. What indication does that give you?
That means, confidence in the local system, and actually that reflects the performance of the banking system here. The performance has been excellent. The growth in the banking system was 12%, year on year. Also, in terms of NPLs, non-performing loans, Qatar banking system, one of the best in the world, 1.8% in aggregate. The capital adequacy of the local banks is north of 16.5%, which is way higher than the Basel III requirement of 12.5%. So this reflects how strong the banking system here. And I must say also something which is very important. I just mentioned it, but I would like to reiterate again the same point. The move from stable to negative has nothing to do with the performance of the banking system. It has nothing to do, just because of the geopolitics. And usually, the rating agencies, they get nervous, whenever there is, something like, the blockade, happened to Qatar. So they just moved it because of, they are thinking like, okay, this is a bad situation. But once they see how resilient the system was and how the economy, has stood up, very strongly, during the blockade. So they immediately, they moved the negative to stable. And I must say, the rating for Qatar and many institutions, including ourselves, QNB, is a AA-, which is one of the highest ratings in the world. You see countries like Belgium and other countries where they're rated equally, and this is the best rated, for the region itself. So the banking system and Qatar sovereign, they are, in terms of rating, they are the best, and they are among the developed economies, at the same stand as these economies. And looking, to the banking system, who has done very well. I can take QNB as an example. For example, last year, we have achieved 7% growth in our, bottom line, 13.1 billion riyals in terms of profit. Our 6 months, the first 6 months, we grew by 7% to 7.2 billion riyals of net profit. Taking these numbers in any comparisons with anyone, even in the region, this is by far is much better than any any other bank in the region. And talking to this, I think going back to the blockade, and I think speaking about the flight to Sudan, if I may change from banking to airlines, I must say also we have benefited from the blockade. I'm a frequent traveler. I travel everywhere, and I've seen Qatar Airways broke the record in terms of airline of flying times. London, for example, my last flight was 5 hours and 59 minutes, which is a record in my opinion. It was less than 6 hours. And I was flying to Amman also about 2 weeks ago. It took 2 hours and 15 minutes. This is a record. So we have benefited from the blockade in a way because we see many opportunities coming from this one. The new routes, I think Qatar Airways is taking benefit from the new routes, which was approved by IATA. And at the same time, also in the economy itself has benefited. We saw many opportunities coming, there. So we had the chance to accelerate certain elements of Qatar Vision 2030. The transport sector, the food security, the logistics. This is all has accelerated in terms of performance, for the economy. And we see now opportunities to position Qatar as a global trading hub. Now we are not bounded by any restrictions in terms of the region itself. We don't have to be, worrying about this is a business for Dubai, for example. This is a business for Saudi, and we say now it's an open economy, open market, and we are open to the world. So now Qatar can position itself really as an open, a true and a global trading hub. In terms of economy, in terms of businesses. We're open to the world. We have seen it with the visa system. As you know, we're ranked number 8, in the world, which is number 1 in the Middle East. No other country has, in terms of visa openness. So Qatar now we see many opportunities coming from the blockade. And going forward, I think we are going to benefit from this strongly. We have built the resilience. Now we are in the growth stage.
Talking about opportunity.
One
sorry.
second, you should not get too excited. You know why he arrives faster to his destinations? Because he's my banker. As he charges me high interest, I charge him higher airfare, so I go faster.
But talking about opportunity, Mr. Hassan Ibrahim, if I am a possible investor in tourism sector, why should I take this step? What support I am expecting from the state of Qatar or tourism authority?
Sure. As we mentioned in the presentation, Nadeem, when you are an investor, the first thing you would need to look at is the healthy regulatory environment. And the regulation in Qatar had been improving in the last decade or so. Qatar, again, in terms of business environment, is improving year after year as well. The growth which we talked about from new markets provide ample opportunities for DMCs in Qatar, for hotels in Qatar as well, to start targeting new markets. And we've proven our success as not just as a destination, but as a country that we're able to adapt to any economic hit, any turmoil that will be either caused by unfortunate incidents or by planned incidents like what happened with the blockade. Beyond that, definitely there are a set of incentives for any investor that will invest in the hospitality sector. They get specific discounts when it comes to electricity and what have you. There are other schemes if people are not feeling confident with the local regulation, that they can use another environment that is provided by the Qatar Financial Center and by the free zones in the future as well. So as I mentioned, economically it's safe. Regulatory, it's sound and it's very clear. And the government had proved its success when it comes to planning new initiatives, that it will always do it with the private sector, not against the private sector. When it comes to implementing these initiatives, they're doing it with the private sector, not against the private sector, and they're not competing with the private sector. And when it comes to monitoring and correcting ourselves, we will not feel shy to correct any step that we've made, and we will not feel too proud about doing mistakes, because any initiative can be right or wrong, and we're very brave when it comes to correcting ourselves and making sure that we're in the right track. So we do it with the investor and not for the investor.
As Mr. Hassan said, Mr. Ali, do you see it an easy way? Is there challenges to achieve the QNV 2030?
Of course, for any vision, there are always challenges. There is nothing comes easy. But what takes, to achieve a vision? First of all, you have to have the right strategies to get to this vision. and you need to be disciplined in terms of execution. This is very important because what we have seen, many strategies, they come and just nice blueprint, and we want to achieve, a huge aspiration, but the key is really in the execution. And you have to be very much disciplined, and also you have to have the right team, and again, supporting the team to achieve. And it's all a teamwork at the end of the day. You will never, achieve things, by doing it yourself. So challenges are always there, and we love challenges. Actually, I enjoy dealing with challenges, because without challenges, there is no fun.
Yusuf Muhammad Al-Jida, sorry, that question was for you, but I said the word, the name. But
it's okay. It was a difficult question.
Sorry,
he took it well.
It's okay. He did good. How do you see your contribution to the growth of the sporting sector, since we are now ahead of the World Cup?
So the sporting sector, I think, is a very important industry up to 2022. And we've identified it as an area of focus for the Qatar Financial Center. We have currently been collaborating with various sports authorities in the country to create sporting clusters. But what we've done differently in the Qatar Financial Center is that we've opened up towards an industry that was not an area of focus in the past. And sports happens to be, I think, an easy one because of the 2022 and because of all the sporting events that the state of Qatar has been successfully arranging in the past. So we are currently looking at the entire value chain for the sports industry. We're looking at traders, we're looking at agents, we're looking at event management companies within the sporting industry. And what we've done with the government is that we have allocated certain funds to incentivize this sector. So currently there will be 2 or 3 sporting clusters being talked about with the Supreme Council of 2022 and Aspire. We're working on basically creating these clusters around the stadiums. We're looking at building a sports city with one of our partners as well. But the bottom line is that we're open for that sector. We're looking at the entire value chain and we're incentivizing it. And I think with an event as big as 2022, it becomes an easy area of focus and a quick win for the state of Qatar. I think with our environment, English common law and our court system, we can definitely attract best-in-class sports companies from all over the world. Whether they are, again, agents, traders, event management companies, or even sporting design companies. So I think this is a very, going to be a very focused area for the KFC for the next 5 years.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. Now we open the floor for some questions. If anyone has questions, please identify yourself at the beginning.
Hi, my name is Imran Khalil. I'm a delegate from Pakistan. I'm also a member of Pakistan-Qatar Business Council. My background is financial services, and I'm also chairing Pakistan-UK Business Council. My question, I've got a couple of questions. First, it was really interesting to hear about how Qatar has opened up and how it's attracting the investments. So in terms of the investment strategy, what sort of projects do you have available for investors, number one? Is there a dedicated portal for that? And number two, the blockade has affected the openness of Qatar, or as you said, Qatar has seen this as an opportunity. Should investors, should businesses, should delegates see this as a longer term strategy? Because a lot of countries do go ahead with this initially, but later on change this, which hampers businesses later on. So those would be the two questions. And lastly, I would also like to ask the gentleman from the Qatar Financial Center, are you also considering things like cross-listings with other emerging economies? Because I think that is also an opportunity for Qatar to consider. Thank you.
Okay, I will answer your first question about, I mean, what opportunities available for investors here in Qatar. Okay, first of all, I mean, Qatar is an open economy, an open commerce, and open trade, platform. Just recently, as His Excellency, also the Minister of Finance earlier, he mentioned that we have allowed now, we have a law in place to allow 100% ownership foreign companies. So again, the visa system already we talked about. But in terms of sectors, we believe, as I said, the immediate needs, as I mentioned, there are certain opportunities which came as a result of the blockade, which is the food security program, building materials, manufacturing. We see transportation is also another opportunities. Very soon also, I mean, there is a very important thing. The duty-free zone is already, the law is in place and it should be in the final stage. Already, actually, the area has been already designated itself in terms of location has been decided, which is near Hamad Port. And that also should, basically open the platform for all the companies to bring in their business here, and not only dealing with Qatar, because we understand Qatar is a small country at the end of the day. It's not like, if you look at it from a business. So you have to really look to Qatar as your trading hub, where you can trade from Qatar to the world, and where you can have easy access. Now, with the airlines we have in place, and you have, routes to how many countries, my friend? 150, 160? Sorry, I'm outdated. 198 countries. So, and then again, you have an excellent port in terms of transportation. And the idea here is really not only Qatar business, because Qatar business, yes, we have, huge projects, and, in terms of infrastructure, more than $150 billion of projects already committed. The idea here is really looking to Qatar as a trading hub, where you can really do the business with Africa, with the Middle East, with Europe, out of Qatar. And this is where we see the strength here. And this is one of the areas we're going to be really putting lots of efforts. And this is a truly open platform. We don't have problem with any country, with any place, We look at it purely from a commercial point of view. We don't involve politics and commerce like other countries do. So you have really an excellent platform. And then you get the support in terms of energies, in terms of infrastructure, everything will be supporting this. So, for companies, really, they have to look to Qatar as a trading platform, as also Qatar. Don't forget, as I said, there is huge development taking place. Already, the population of Qatar is 2.7 million, which is 6% increase month on month, which is one of the highest, population growth in the world. So there are many opportunities here. You have the World Cup, coming, the 2022, and again, the development for the 2030 vision in the health education sector. But in addition to this, think about Qatar as your trading platform for other countries as well.
Mr. Youssef.
On your question on the Qatar Financial Center part, of course, as you know, during the, or maybe you don't know, but during the blockade, the outreach for Qatar has changed dramatically. We've formed new partnerships, and we've heard from the panelists earlier. We've seen some representation from Turkey, from Tunisia. Friendly nations in the blockade, of course, have formed stronger relations with the state of Qatar. So Turkey, even Pakistan with the new government, Malaysia. So we can see these relationships with the state of Qatar becoming stronger with certain nations. Now, what do we do with that? Of course, we as the financial center think there's an opportunity on these G2G relations. One area we're currently looking at very closely, and I think since you're part of the council, you've probably come across this, but we're looking at financial centers in friendly nations, and we're trying to form mutual recognition frameworks in the area of Islamic finance. Meaning if you're a financial institution in Pakistan, hopefully if Pakistan joins, as I know there's a financial center being currently under construction, but should they construct the financial center, then these nations can build similar legal frameworks and mutually recognize each other, which means entry into those markets without any restrictions. It's a big plan, it's a big picture, but we're working very closely with friendly nations to make this a reality. On top of that, the Financial Center has also signed 21 MOUs with different European nations for the asset management industry, which means if you're an asset manager established in Qatar, you can easily access those markets, which we have MOUs with. So there are big plans being put together, and we hope we can discuss this further with the new Pakistani government as well.
Thank you. Yes, please.
To add something, I also want to say what my brothers just mentioned. In addition to that, we have now just established a free zone authority where you could establish yourself, which will give you tax exemptions. It will give you incentives to be there, whereby my brother Ali mentioned that you could use it to re-export your products that you will be able to manufacture, or even to use it as a logistics center. And sorry to, I gave you a wrong statement. It's not 198 countries. It's 198 destinations in 115 countries.
In the back, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, to say thanks to the organizers and to congratulate them all for the organization of this IPEC conference. Thank you also to the panelists for sharing with us all this important information. My name is Oreste del Rio Sandoval. I am the ambassador of the Republic of Panama here in Qatar. I have two questions. The first of all is for Mr. Abdurrahman, and second of all for His Excellency Akbar al-Bakr. As you may know, Panama is one country located in the middle of America. That means that we have not as big as Qatar, but we have a really good job, a really good airline hub there. For us, it's very important because you are a role model for the tourism and several things, but in this special case, I want to ask you, Excellency, how you keep the country so safe, even when all the movement you have from different parts of nationalities of whole world, the whole dynamic movement from people you have here, how you keep the country so safe? Because for me, in my personal case, I don't see around all a big movement of policemen or anything, but it's very important to keep this. And for His Excellency Akbar al-Bakr, it's always great to hear you speaking and to learn all the things you share. I want to ask you, because recently we had in Latin America a very important delegation with His Highness the Emir visiting different countries in South America. I just want to ask you, with the plans of expansion of Qatar, if you are thinking to open a new route in Latin America, and why not in Panama? Thank you.
For the first question about the balance between openness and safety and security, it's not just your question, but it's a global debate in the tourism sector and the travel sector. Whenever we push for openness, we're being questioned whether our openness will cause any security and safety issues in the destination. However, technology is being discussed here in this forum as one of the challenges that we have, and it is a challenge for businesses to keep up with technology, but technology also provides an opportunity for governments to do things seamlessly. So the airlines, the Ministry of Interior Affairs, the airports, they are using technology to make sure that the advanced passenger information systems are used. People are being checked, whether they know it or not, they're being checked before they come to the destination. And definitely we will not proceed with such a movement to be or to become the most open destination without studying this really well. It is a global trend as well. The destinations which are not politicizing the tourism industry, they're moving more and more towards openness because they can see the economic value, and not just the economic value, but also the social and cultural value of opening their borders. And it increases tolerance between people as well. They understand themselves more and more, which is on the longer term solves the issue of security and safety as well. So this is our philosophy when it comes to why we're opening our borders And are we compromising our safety and security by opening our borders? I can assure you that we're not. By using technology, by having the great partners on board to help us implement such policies, and by making sure that we're playing a larger role when it comes to increasing the level of understanding and tolerance on the longer term as well.
You are the ambassador of Panama. I know that every single ambassador that comes to Qatar wants Qatar Airways to operate to their country. Unfortunately, we don't see that there is enough passenger flow from our region to Central America. And you are already very well connected by your airline, Copa, which is one of the best airlines in that region. So we are open to work with Copa to feed passengers from our network in the United States to this region. But for us to go, it is one of the most expensive routes to operate. And you know already that one of our neighboring countries wanted to challenge Qatar Airways' longest flight by also launching a flight to Panama. And then 6 weeks into the launch, they withdrew. So now you know why I don't go there. When there is an opportunity, be sure that I will be the first one to go because I love to make money.
Okay, in the front, please. One question, please.
My name is Chadi. I'm representing Japanese international company in the Middle East. My question to His Excellency Akbar Al-Bakr. You mentioned that Qatar is planning to expand its current airport. You mentioned that Qatar is planning to expand its current airport. Is it related to the FIFA World Cup 2022? That means the current airport doesn't have enough capacity to accommodate the passengers who are coming to Qatar for the World Cup? Or this expansion is part of the Vision 2030? Or this expansion is part of the expansion of Qatar Airways? Can you please explain in brief about this?
First and foremost, the airport as a major hub is for Vision 2030. Secondly, the expansion is happening for the expansion of Qatar Airways. In the process of this expansion for Qatar Airways, we will then be able to cater for all the traffic that will coming for 2022. So your long question is answered by a simple reply.
I have two suggestions, no questions. One to Mr. Hassan Abdurrahman and the other to His Excellency Akbar Al-Bakr. Now, my name is George Soudis. I'm a tour operator from Greece, maybe the oldest tour operator who stepped into Qatar 38 years ago. I had been welcomed by the Qatari travel agencies, and I had an excellent time here. I love you as a nation, and I had the honor to serve most of the old generation of the Qataris. Mr. Hassan, when I came here, I went swimming to the Qatari waters. It was so clean, so good, that I had drink seawater those days. And I was walking to the desert with my clothes rolling down, and it was so clean, so good. Last year, I happened to go to a campus of a friend, Mr. Hassan. And there were a bunch of guides from Iraq, I remember. They were fishing in the night. Then they were eating, they were cooking, and they dumped everything in the desert. In the morning, the tide went up, and they took everything into the sea. Nowadays, I went to swim in Qatari waters. I cannot see in 1 meter when I dive. Please, you have two very good resorts here, advantage, the sand and the sea. Keep it clean. This is your advantage to the tourism. Don't make the same mistake that Dubai and Bahrain did. They create a Lego city and they destroy their sea and their sand. This is what the people want to come here. Otherwise, does not make any difference.
Thank you.
Why they should come here.
Thank you.
If you allow me to answer the question or the suggestion that you suggested. First of all, thank you very much for your enthusiasm about Qatar, and definitely it's a beautiful destination and we'd like the world to see the destination. As we mentioned in our presentation, the proposition that we have for the destination is to focus on its assets, which includes the sun and the sea, the desert and the sea. We've been working very closely with our partners in the Ministry of Environment and Municipality to make sure that regulations are being imposed. There are laws and regulations that help us to protect certain areas, and we're starting this year with a prototype in the desert, in the sea line area in Qatar, where we provide a systematic way of protecting that area. It will only be protected by regulations that are being imposed and by making sure that the environment is ready also for investment. And the private sector is helping us with the sustainability of that area. So I agree with you. I agree that we need to do more and more to protect our beautiful environment. Any place which has over-tourism or being occupied by tourists, whether locally or internationally, is being misused. And it is our role as a regulator to make sure that we're providing such a protection for the beautiful assets that we have in Qatar. But thank you very much for your enthusiasm. And we'll definitely...
Yes. We only have 3 minutes.
Words. There is still in Greece some airports for selling. Greece is the center of the world. And as well, please try to keep at least 2 flights to Santorini a week.
Okay, no problem. I will consider what you are asking.
Thank you.
Is that good?
We have only 3 minutes for 2 more questions. From the back, at the end. Another question? So we can decide from now. That's question. Only one question, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Yasmin Pirinçoğlu. I'm from Istanbul, Turkey, from a travel company called VIP Tourism and Event Management. I've been in the business quite a long time. And I'm here in Qatar, and I love it. And thank you for this conference. My suggestion and question is, if there is a good marketing plan to promote Qatar in a very accurate and down-to-earth way, this is a fantastic destination for people from around the world to come to. And I would love to know about that and what kind of budget and marketing you're doing. Thank you very much.
What kind of budget? I will not divulge the budget because I'm afraid I'll be supporting Qatar Airways when I have a large budget. So I will not divulge the budget. I'll keep it as a secret. But in terms of what we're doing in terms of marketing, I'll be very specific about Turkey since you are from Turkey. I just came back a few weeks ago from Turkey. I was there and I met with a few of the tour operators, the largest tour operators in Turkey. We met with them specifically post the economic situation in Turkey, just to see how we can support the tour operators to start selling Qatar more and more, and how we can start adjusting our segments to make sure that we're reaching out to the right audience. So what we will do as a destination, we'll definitely work more and more in terms of raising the awareness, and that will be done by rolling out a global campaign, and this global campaign will be rolled out very soon. That will raise the awareness about the destination. And Turkey is one of the markets that we're targeting in our global campaign. One other effort that we're making sure that our tour operators and our partners in Turkey have the right DMCs in Qatar. So Discover Qatar is definitely a great partner that the tour operators can work with. And there are also other DMCs in Qatar which we need to make sure that the Turkish tour operators are working with. And we will support them by allocating marketing budgets where we put joint funds with the tour operators. We will support them by training their staff on how to sell the destination. And we have already a website in Turkish, and we have the collateral needed in Turkish that the tour operators can use to sell Qatar. Both in terms of above the line and below the line, we have the system in place. And we have an office in Turkey which you can always reach out to in order for you to seek their support whenever you need any support from such an office. And I'm available throughout the conference, so please feel free to reach out to me if there is any specific question regarding your company as well.
Okay, last question, then we close the session, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Peyman Yazdani from ISNA News Agency from Iran. And I have main question from His Excellency Mr. Al-Bakir. Recently, because of the sanction lifted up by US government, there are lots of companies, flight companies that are leaving Iran. So Qatar Airways is one of the main ones for businessmen and women in Iran that they're using that. So what is the future of Qatar Airways related to Iran in years in future? What's the decision of Qatar Airways? Are you leaving Iran or are you continuing? Thank you.
Aviation is not a sanctioned industry, and Qatar Airways will continue to operate into the cities that we currently are already operating into Iran. So our flights to Iran is not going to be affected. So I hope you have satisfaction that you will still be able to connect via Doha to wherever you want to go.
So with this, we close our panel session. I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Akbar Al-Bakir, Chief Executive Qatar Airways, Mr. Ali Ahmed Al-Kuwari Group, Chief Executive Officer, Qatar National Bank, Mr. Hassan Abdulrahman Al-Ibrahim, Acting Chairman, Qatar Tourism Authority, and Mr. Yusuf Muhammad Al-Jida, Chief Executive Officer, Qatar Financial Center. Thank you all.